It's actually almost a running joke on my own YouTube channel about how many ways I can think of to make steak and chips. But there's one way that I come back to every single time because it's just my favorite way, and it's the way that I do it off camera. It's just my favorite steak and chips meal that I know. It's very simple, handful of ingredients. It's a different technique to maybe what you've seen before, but man, it's, just trust me, this is how you should have steak and chips. Start with, we're gonna make a sauce. Like my language when I burn myself, this sauce is quite colorful. So we start off with some chilies. You do not need a ridiculously big knife to do this. In fact, a smaller one's probably more practical, but this is the one that was out. You can use green chilies if you want, but I recommend red just because the color looks better. It actually just, I don't know, makes this whole thing look really cool. Now, I'm gonna grab some flat leaf parsley. You take a bit of a Snoop Dogg technique here and you roll up the green. Rolly, 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 rolly. And then you can do this in a blender. But does it look like I have a blender? Come on, I barely even use my blender at home. These things will do a great job. And in fact, traditionally, this sauce I'm making is called chimichurri, by the way. Traditionally, chimichurri is done with a knife. So I'm gonna continue that. Next, you want some garlic. So I'll probably throw in like, I don't know, 4 cloves-ish, that sort of thing. And make sure this is the first thing you do when you're cooking this meal, because the longer this sits around, the better it gets. Because you want all these flavors to get to know each other. So I'll go 5 because they're kind of small cloves. Now, if you don't like raw garlic and vinegar and that kind of stuff, obviously mixed into a different setting, but if you don't like really garlicky things, this is not for you. My wife, for example, hates this sauce, which makes it brilliant for me. She doesn't touch it. She happily eats her steak and potatoes with no chimichurri, and I eat all the chimichurri. But I'd say 95% of people I've gone away with have enjoyed it. And you can bash this in, you can all mash it in together a little bit like this as well. If you're getting really fancy, you chuck it in a little mortar and pestle and smash it a bit. But I'm gonna use a cup. All right, let's chuck on some oil. I use a water bottle for oil because it's just, if it can hold water, it can hold oil. And it makes it work really well. So I probably put about 200 mils of oil in there. It's quite a lot. You can filter that afterwards, just run it through a paper towel or something, and it'll be great, especially when it's just had chips in it. All right, I was gonna go and do chips, but then I realized that I have forgotten something crucial, which is to finish the chimichurri. I get distracted very easily. That is olive oil, and that's red wine vinegar. So you want about 2 tablespoons of red wine vinegar in there, or maybe 1 tablespoon of that. Yeah, 1 tablespoon, and equal part of olive oil. You just want it, do you want it to be slushy, all right? Bit of salt, bit of coarse pepper. I'll show you how you want it. That's how you want it. So there's probably 5 ml of liquid down the bottom, but it's kind of just, it's all just a bit wet. And you want to leave that there so it all gets to know each other and becomes extra delicious. Oh, it smells great. Okay, chips. Thick cut pub fries. And now, in most of my recipes, you'll see I've let the oil get to temperature. Chips don't actually matter. You can chuck them in from cold oil, so do it. Just chuck them in from cold oil. As long as they get hot enough in the end, it's okay. So I'm just gonna throw these in. That's not cold oil. Whew. I want to know what temperature that is. I think it's even too hot. Oh, that's way too hot. Pay attention to your oil, fellas. All right, I'm gonna let that cool down for a second. I'm using a charcoal grill today and it's very hot, which is exactly what I wanted for the steak, but maybe I shouldn't have put this on the full heat of the middle of it. Geez, BCF invites some experts to do cooking videos for them, don't they? Nailing it. All right, while we're waiting for that to cool down, let's get the steak ready. I've gone fancy here and I've gone for like a Wagyu cross Angus because I'm a fancy boy. I actually prefer Angus to Wagyu when it's just a good Scotch fillet, or ribeye as they say in America, but you can make up your own mind as to what you like. This is just my preference. So that's about 2 centimeters thick, 2.5 centimeters thick, and should cook beautifully on there. All right, the oil should be the right temperature for the chippies, but I'm not going to put it on much heat, so I'll put it over on sort of the far side of the heat. And look, almost every grill in a camping situation is going to be slightly crooked, so just make sure you put the chips in the right spot so they get the oil. That's a more appropriate fizz level. Okay, now at the same time, chuck your steak on. Oh, people get weird about putting pepper on the steak before you cook it. Don't get weird about it. Cooked pepper is delicious. That sear has just come out perfectly. So that's about probably 4 minutes on that side. And you want as much heat as you can. That's just, with a good steak, sort of standard thickness, just give it as much heat as you can. You can always rest it, you can always give it less heat, but you can never recreate a good sear without lots of heat. Now, this steak will probably be ready before these chips, and that's okay because the steak needs to rest on the board. Now you can obviously use like a meat thermometer or something to make sure that that steak is cooked perfectly. I'm pretty good at winging it. If you do have a meat thermometer, chuck it in, wait till it gets to 50 degrees and take it off if you want medium rare. It'll slowly warm up on the board and get to 54, 55 internal, which is perfect. All right, I'm gonna say that steak's done. It's probably about 4 or 5 minutes on each side. The sear looks perfect, it's nice and dark. So yeah, that's going to come off and just leave it on the breadboard to rest for probably 5 minutes. Okay, these are looking pretty good. So we'll get the chippies off. If you like to do a bit of deep fried stuff, get yourself a little scoop, mesh scoop. You get them from the supermarket, they're like $5 and they're great. Oh yes, this looks, oh, I can feel how crispy those chips are. So salt on the chips, obviously, always. Now, I like to slice my steak first, and there are 2 reasons for that. Number 1, it looks good. Number 2, it stops it from cooking anymore. Now, if I could find my knife, I would do that. There's my knife. So, that is just perfect. That's medium rare. Look, you can have your steak well done, just not in front of me, please. That's for weird private time stuff. Your weird steak, your weird cooking. Ooh. Now, you have to have a little lick of the fingers when you do that. Just get a proper taste of it. Chimmy on top, bit of the sauce over it. Chuck some on the chips. That way the chips look healthy because there's green in them. And that is, all right, let's dig in. Now, if you're feeling extra fancy like me, I actually carry a little collapsible steak knife as well, just to be, just feels better. I could have cut that with a spoon. It's just my favourite meal. Just is. The bit of vinegar in that sauce is amazing. Because it cuts through the fattiness in the steak, because it's a well marbled steak. Then you've got the chili, which isn't very spicy because it's been pickled. the garlic, which isn't very sharp because it's been pickled. You got the freshness of this parsley. It's just a really, really well balanced, delicious meal. And then the chips, I don't know what it is. You just add chips to this, and it goes from, yeah, that was nice, to like, I'm in a restaurant. Just get yourself some chips, do it. It's so worth it. I don't order steak at pubs because I make this. I just know this is better. So, anyway, get out there, make it. I'll see you in the next one. Bit of pepper on the chips as well, actually, and on the steak.